Okay, so in the last meeting we discussed about the meta information like session ID, volume, speed, time, time from, time to, the CC subtitles, and resolution of player, frame rate, and things like that. So we'll continue on that. I think Jason, did you add these URLs? Let me see where it is. I saw that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I sure did. I started to add those, and I was going to set those up as well on the vocabulary server if everyone was okay with it. I just wanted to try to get you started because it looked like you guys were waiting for me or somebody to put those in.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It looks great.
The other, okay, is this within the working? Yeah, this is within the working group document, right? Is there another document you guys have where you have defined any additional parameters or metadata for any of these?
I actually need to drop.
Currently, this is the only document we have a wiki page, but there is not much information there. So
okay.
Probably.
Okay, I'll start another one. Yeah. I'll start another one with the other metadata fields in it and bounce them off of you guys before I publish it.
I think there is a feedback from someone. Okay, yes, you can add any information you want. If you want, you can add more fields. And finally, we'll probably use this GitHub for publishing the profile.
Okay.
So if you need access to this the GitHub, I can provide. I haven't used it, so I can tell if.
Oh sure, yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah, I'll figure out how to add and maybe provide you access. So yes. Yeah, so last week we had confusion about some things like this time and the from and to time. The confusion was results. Should we use results extension or should we use context extension for these values? Jason, do you have any suggestions on this?
Let's see, time in milliseconds, accuracy, number of seconds in the video, pause, play. I would think some of these would go into result. Hold on, let me get back to you on that.
Okay, I'm also having the same feeling. So yes, you can think a little more and let me know, or maybe just change it here, remove this part.
And Jason, how would you define context in terms of the information that should be in a context value?
Yeah, so usually context is to augment or add more to that activity. It's context activity definition. Seems like maybe when you're talking about time, that's a result. You know, that's something that definitely helps you go back and associate multiple data points with like completed. What time did they start it? What time did they play it? What time did they complete it? You can do differential comparisons between those because of that time date. So I'm pretty sure that would be a result almost always. I don't know which other ones besides. Okay, I see. It looks like you've got most of them defined. That was the only one that you had a question on is time, right? Or no, you have also two.
Yeah, so time is time is the actual time when it was played or paused in the video. So that is the time. But from and to is when you seek, or that is when you move from one point to another. So the point it was moved from and the point it was moved to. So all these three are time values in the video. uh, I think we could again raise question for these two as well, the volume and speed.
So I guess those could be context then too, depending on how you store that. You know, I honestly don't know from an LRS perspective which Dave's seen. I don't think either of them would necessarily be wrong. I'm sure you could write the statement to store it in either place. It might be good to ask this question and get a dialogue going with the community, actually, targeting the LRS vendors to see if they have any consensus or consensus and preference.
This is Anthony. I guess my question would be, how is the data intended to be consumed? Because you cannot search by by context, but you can search by result. I don't know if you can I'm not sure how much you can search by result in that way, though. But if, for example, you wanted to see, all right, well, how many people started between here and here, that would be a query. Whereas if it's part of context extensions, you'd have to bring back every time somebody hit seek or every time somebody hit play, and then evaluate the entirety of that list. And especially if you're looking at like, for example, creating video heat maps of what parts of videos are watched most often, those queries are going to grow in popularity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because this timestamp here is marking a play, a pause, a terminate.
I'm more inclined towards result because
why would you want to put it in what was the original thought behind possibly putting it in context? Just because they're bucket extensions, or did you have some other reason?
The only thing was that it was not very clear.
Okay. Not clear in the spec.
Maybe not clear in the spec, maybe not clear in our minds. The last meeting we had a discussion, and no one was very clear whether it should be on results. I have been a little inclined towards results, but again, result in general is the score and those stuff. So any extension to it would probably need some clarity that this should go to result and a reason for it. So these time values affect the result, but again, any context information could do so.
I would be inclined to put them in results.
Great.
And if you think about it, that makes logical sense too, because the seek is from X to Y. The result is that you moved from X to Y. So that would be the result. So to me, that just makes sense.
Yeah. So should we remove this part? Just make it result.
I vote yes. All those opposed?
This is John. I have one question because I'm looking at different types of statements here on screen, but would pause be a verb, its own statement with its own statement ID, and then the timestamp is basically out at that root level
Yeah,
where
paused will
where the pause happened.
yeah, paused will have its own statement. It'll have a timestamp. That'll be the time when that pause statement was generated or stored.
But
But
that's not. But this is a different.
this time value is the time in the video. So if
Oh, I got you. Okay, I'm sorry. So I'm not opposed.
anyone opposed? Okay, so I'll take it as result. So to let us reconsider or reconfirm the volume and speed. The volume and speed, I think we had a consensus that it goes to context, but do we need to reconsider or is it good in context? Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you are. I think that those are contextual type properties.
Okay.
One question. I'm actually digging through from the GitHub the ADL spec. Would the video be listed within that GitHub? Is it still in the same? And just a search from there would find me there, or is it separated for video?
We'll have a separate profile for video. The
Okay.
spec will be as it is, so it'll be kind of an extension, but
So I wouldn't be able to see it within the main the GitHub for xAPI spec.
I think Jason might be able to explain better about that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this video profile is an attempt to define the vocabulary and the recipes and so forth for
Right.
making video statements. But the particular sections in the document that we are referencing, if you're looking at the new 1.0.3 version, is under xAPI data, and we're looking at the
Okay.
the results, which is 2.4.6. I'm sorry, 2.4.5, and the context object, which is 2.4.6.
Could you repeat that the last name of that target where I can get to it?
Yeah, actually, I'll just paste it in the chat window here for you.
Cool,
On the
great,
side of,
thanks.
Yep, yep.
Okay, great. So yes, so we discussed about resolution, frame rate. So maybe we can talk again about frame rate. We decided that we'll have integer values. Do we need to reconsider this part?
In frame rate is wait, is that a
So if a video has constant frame rate, we could mention it in the statements.
gotcha. If you know what it was.
Yeah. So generally it is 15 or 25 frames per second. There could be exception in videos where the frame change is very slow, and if it is less than 1 second, we could
Yeah, if
go into decimal.
it's going to be frames per second, then that integer value, then maybe you want to make that the name of the extension, like instead of call it frame rate, call it frames underscore per underscore second. I don't know.
I think
Does anybody know of a player that makes that available via API? How it's reported?
Yeah, good question.
I haven't checked.
I don't know about the players, but I mean, I'm sure we all know like the authoring tools when you're editing video allow you to adjust that, but I don't know of any players that provide that metadata. Sure, they've got to.
Yeah. Well, I guess my question is, how do they report it as, 15, or is it an integer 15, or is it a real 15.0? Because movie frame rate is not an integer. It's actually was it 24.93 or something like that, or 23.93, something like that. Or does it report as a string 15 FPS, or how is that reported back? I think we need some guidance from the actual software in this case.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen decimal values so far, so but I cannot be sure if that there is no decimal values. Okay, so we can leave it to more thought. Next thing pending was the RFC 5646 in the language. So does anyone know anything about it? Jason or John?
The audio language. No, but the country code value should be fine.
Yeah, I was trying to dig out information on that. It's each one of these things specs like points to another one that points back to it.
So here's the problem with the audio language is that's going to be set by the authoring software and by the author, him or herself. If he or she does it correctly, then it's going to use those codes. But how often are we going to just see EN and SP, or English and Spanish, or primary, secondary? I don't think we can take for granted we're going to have any. I don't think we can take for granted the format because the tools that publish these videos do not enforce a format. They're free-form fields.
I just got hit with the Hawaiian dialect. So where that would reconcile.
I'm just trying to find find where in the language, where in the spec it is specified. So,
But
context.
But that's what I mean. How xAPI defines it and how the video define it are completely unrelated.
The thing is, it can be related. When you see the context definition in the xAPI spec, it already has a field for language, and the language in this field, this language field is for the language of the content or context.
And we're not going to be able to use it. Because that field expects it to be in, what is it, IEEE 8996 or something like that? Is it? No.
RFC 564.
Well, there's the IEEE number too. I think it's 8996. It's the 2x2 code. But we cannot take for granted the video is going to define its audio tracks in that format. So if that's the case, now we're putting the onus on the tracking mechanism to build rather complex translation matrices to somehow guess if that's in English or Spanish or whatever else.
Yeah, I guess what's the value in storing this? I mean, are you trying to say, well, this video the user watched, viewed, played, whatever, was in this specific language? Is that the level of detail you're looking to get out of storing that language value?
Yeah.
Because I agree with Anthony in that if they, the identifier of the activity is resolved, you can find out what language it is. I didn't know if there's some value in the LRS being able to report this or something.
I think there's value to know, especially if you have a video that's in 3 or 4 different languages. It's good to know, well, if nobody's consuming French, when I update the video, well, I'm not going to worry about translating to French, for example. So I think there is some value in that. I think what we're more likely to get are the audio track numbers. Track 1, track 2. Well, it's either track 1 or track 0. It depends on the player. But I mean, just as an example, go grab 3 DVDs from 3 different studios, and I guarantee the tracks are called different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the same. I guess the same would happen for this video if it was offered in 3 different languages, right? There would be 3 different identifiers for that activity.
Yep.
So you could still figure out, which one was not viewed the most or whatever.
Yeah, so I think if we have like the track, if we have a track number or something, a track indicator, we can glean from that with what's what.
Mm-hmm.
We already have a field for track name, so this track name can have that value, and if that helps, that can be one parameter for identifying which track is being used. But the value of language is where, let's say, you have 1,000 videos produced using different tools and having different languages. Now, if all those videos have different languages, and you now want to know which language is being used more overall, or the use of which language has better effect on the output of whatever you are trying to achieve using the video. So language can be a useful parameter, and if we can use the standard language field provided in this spec, it can be easier to generate reports using generalized reports provided by existing LRSs or existing analysis tools, because they might already create reports for this language value. If we create a separate extension, language extension, uh, it is possible that you might need custom coding for reports for that extension.
I think you're
Now,
going to need. I think you're
yeah,
going to need custom coding either way.
I didn't get.
Yeah.
I didn't get what you said.
I think you're. I see there's someone who has IEEE in their name here, so I'll be very careful on how I say this. Very few people care about the IEEE or IEEE specs, so
Yeah.
I think you're going to be very hard pressed to find a lot of videos, especially out on the internet, that are produced, on your phone camera, that are going to use the IEEE 2x2 naming.
That's a
Naming.
baseline, right?
Yeah, I'm not yet sure what is this RFC 5646. So first thing is, if any one of us knows, please explain.
Yeah, we looked
A
it up
lot
during
of
the last
information.
meeting. It was just a massive document.
Yeah.
And if anyone in the xAPI community doesn't understand it, I guess we need to make sure that this is removed from the xAPI spec itself. I mean, why is it
Wow.
there? If no one understands it and if no one is going to use it, I think this would be improved, or at least explained here how to use this. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. You know, I know you can do a lot of language stuff a lot easier with our RDF, and as you know, I spent a lot of time with that the past year in the vocabulary world. But unfortunately, xAPI does not support it inherently. If we updated it to be JSON LD, it would be a lot easier to add this language stuff. It would just be as simple as adding language tag in line than having to go and read this other outdated spec. So my 2 cents. I don't really have an answer for you for right now.
Yeah, maybe we need to discuss it in the xAPI spec meeting, but
This was the best document that I could find describing it, and it's not just 2 characters. I mean, there's extensions to these things for dialects and everything. They just go on to the.
Yeah, it's not just the 2 characters. You can do 2 characters, but if you have different locales, you're kind of urged to use those. Just depends on where you are geographically, I guess, what language you're specifying. Or did you paste something in the chat window, John? Okay,
Yeah, and this, I mean, this 5646 references a bunch of ISO specs. So it's not intuitive enough to just kind of look at briefly and go, oh, I got it.
Yeah, so maybe we need some clarification in the xAPI spec on what it should be, or we need to decide on a subset of this RFC, or maybe just remove the RFC requirement and have an alternative string definition on how it should look like. Generally, we see these 2 types of strings. It is either something like en underscore and then capitals US, or it is en hyphen US. So I have seen these two types of strings. I don't know which RFC or what it is, but these two types of strings I have seen generally in the language.
Yeah, it's usually the hyphenated one, I believe, is what most people use.
Yeah.
It should be used. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right though. That kind of thing. And believe it or not, we are getting ready to fund some efforts to work on conformance tests for xAPI, and there's both implicit and explicit requirements in the spec, and this is one of those things that are kind of both implicit and explicit. You know, you have to you should store the language data, but it doesn't really tell you. It implicitly tells you, use this spec, but it doesn't really call out. So, in short, we're working on improving some of this stuff with the conformance test, and I think in turn we need to go back and update the spec language to be more explicit about these things.
Yeah.
So,
Because if we cannot understand what it should look like, if someone else is trying to implement the spec, I think it will be much more tough for them to be able to understand what they need to do.
so which section are you pointing to using this at? Is this under extension, or what are you at? So
it is the context
context, and then language.
4.1.6.
Okay, I'll open up a issue while we're on the call and submit it to the tech spec group and see if we can get an answer.
Okay, great.
Get it approved.
And also, if we have to make sure that we don't require the 2x2, we can allow the 3x3 because Klingon is a 3-digit code, not a 2-digit code. So, this, I think Elvish is also a 3-digit code.
Yeah.
And incidentally, I'm going to get political for just a second. That actually is very important because right now CBS is suing someone claiming they own the Klingon language. So, we need to accept it as a living language.
Wow. CBS, the television company.
Yeah, they're the fan Star Trek films are starting to get better than the ones CBS is puking out. So.
Oh wow.
They're getting antsy.
Okay, so yes, this, I think I should mark it red. So yes, we have two different language parameters that we need clarity on. One is the language, audio language, which we so far expect that it will be the context language parameter, and then we have the subtitle language, and it'll go to the extensions. So what else do we need?
And I'm pasting one more link in here that I just stumbled on. It's the ISO 639.2 spec, and it's got subcodes in 2 and 3 character versions listed in it. So my guess is that we'll have to just kind of pick one of these standards that we adhere to for it. And there seem to be a bunch of them. So you
Yeah,
saw
this
we don't have 2-character versions; they just exist in 3.
yeah. Yeah, so this is more readable than the RFC. So maybe we can wait and see if we get some feedback from the spec group on the RFC 5646, and if we don't see any option, we could change this to use the extensions and decide what we want to use. But it would be best if the same language format is used by everyone, and including the xAPI spec itself. As long as it is usable. So is there any other metadata missing that we need to add? Hello.
Still here.
Yep.
Okay. So, is there any other metadata that we need to add? Should we add full screen? If you don't have the link to this document, I'll add to the chat. So should we add full screen as part of the meta information somewhere?
The usability thing, so that's helpful.
True.
That's a viewing context, right? You want to know if somebody viewed it in full screen mode.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I guess we have covered almost everything. I don't know what this next is. Moves to next video in playlist.
That's content creation button.
Not sure if we can track or if we need to track this next. Probably it is for clicking the next button in the player for the next video.
Yeah, because the next target is going to where the information hits. Yeah.
Okay, I submitted a new ticket on the language string issue from earlier. Sorry, I was on mute there for a while.
Okay,
I'll
great.
get an answer. I think generally, it's the two-letter country code, then dash the region or locale, and you can go as granular as you want. I think is what the spec says. But I agree. We shouldn't have to link to that spec and expect everyone to go and read that, get their answer. I mean, we should probably give them some guidance.
Doesn't the standard specify clearly as lowercase for national or lowercase E-N-U-S?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's country, then locale, depending on which country you're in. Could be state, province, whatever, but it can get even more granular than that. There's subtags you can add also. I was just skimming through it.
But specifically on case of those, do you have to allow, disallow case, uppercase, lowercase?
Oh, on the case part, I don't know. I have to go back and read through it again. I don't think it. I don't think it matters.
I think it comes in as lowercase, but does it bulk if it's an uppercase? I guess that's what. Is that going to throw it out?
I don't think so. Shouldn't matter.
Right. Computers
Although
are usually smart enough, right?
Well, I mean, depending on the operating system, like some
Sure.
case sensitive. So depending on what kind of web server you're dealing with, if you're doing like language content negotiation, it could cause some problems unless you throw some kind of regular expressions in there. To handle it, but,
In most places where I have seen this format, underscore format, I see that the first part EN is in small and then the US is in capitals. So maybe it is part of some standard.
Yeah, I think that's what made me raise the issue, because there is a difference that it looks like, as I've seen in the documents already, but I didn't know what was solid, or is that an issue or not?
I think browser language settings also have this kind of format.
Actually, I've seen the opposite for browsers. It's usually EN-US lowercase.
Okay. So yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it both, and then the country flipped. Yeah, or the language lowercase and the nationality uppercase, or the other. Well, not really the other, but.
Yeah, but good point. We do need some clarity on this. I just opened the ticket, so we'll find out.
Yeah. Okay, so that so these two things are there which needs some clarity. One is the integer, the value of frame rate, should it be integer or it can be decimal values, and the other is the language. So yes, we can wait on these two things. Do we need to add another verb for next, or should we just leave it for people to decide on what they want to do?
Well, this isn't a verb, right? It's it's an extension.
Oh,
This is an extension, right? Are you still in the extensions table?
I think it'll be a verb when a user clicks on the next button to go to next video. I'm not sure if I don't know. If it is an extension, it should be to some existing verb, and it depends totally on what the player will give back. If
Right, it's going to have the ID of whoever initiated that. Right.
once a new video is initiated, it'll start from the first verb of that video initialization. So it'll be from initialized and then play, pause, whatever that goes on.
I haven't played around with the video buttons in YouTube lately, but on like DVD recorders, they have like a forward and then a fast forward, like you have below, or one
Yeah.
will take you from chapter to chapter versus fast forwarding the video in line. So is that kind of like what the next button is here? Is like it's actually going forward to the next chapter in the list or the next video in the playlist?
Yeah. So
That's that button. Okay.
so it looks like that. I didn't add it, so I'm not sure what the person who added it thought about, but it is probably the next and previous in the playlist.
See, I almost think that should call that like playlist next or something. I don't know. Just next as a verb doesn't seem to fit. This is an event that needs tracking, not a verb.
Like forever, or yeah.
Yeah, so do we need to track it?
I don't know. That's sure you guys sculpt it. I think it's good to think about it. I don't know.
Are there going to be? Is there going to be is there an active button sitting there that could be, because it is the next button, but there are other things that could have happened, but the next trigger puts you to the next screen. Did you want to know that happened? But again, the other objects that were on, at least displayed and then had any other actions in them, those are going to initiate the tracking, right? Maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point. Are you going to be able to track?
When you draw the screen, you're going to get all those buttons, yes or no, or are those just potentials at that point and not tracked?
Yeah, it depends on the player whether
Right,
whether we
right.
Yeah, like YouTube serves that up as
Yeah,
basically
get to
to
it
stop
through
it.
the YouTube API.
and it also depends on the player at what point of time we can track it. So if we want to use it as a meta value, um, we need to be able to track it before the last video is uh, has ended, or uh, it would probably generate a pause event, or a stop event if the player has. And if we want to add this information in that video, we would need to be able to have that information before the new video is loaded. When I try it on YouTube, it loads a new page. I don't know what happens if the video in is loaded using an API, but on the YouTube page, when I click on next video link, it just reloads the page with the new video link. So it is likely that all the JavaScript will be stopped and the new page is loaded. Now, using the API, I don't know whether this button will show up as at all.
And this might be a big ranch, but likely coming soon. But what about video games and all the activity in a game, like a virtual reality game? And we're not going there. Or is it just purely video? Start, pause. Yeah.
Yeah, this group's just for video.
Yeah,
there is another group that has spent some time working on a vocabulary and profile for a serious game. I'm actually going to meet with them tomorrow.
Right, yeah. Okay, cool.
So they're looking to publish something around that line, but it's just for serious games.
Yeah, I've seen that repeatedly for a long time. Yeah.
So maybe we'll leave it for now and then see if someone else raises concern on this, or we get some use case which requires if we get some use case that requires this information, we could add it to the profile. Otherwise, people always have an option to add it on their own. Playback speed. So I think these two are there. Should we add the device and device playback screen size?
I'd say yeah, because it's going to. Again, I keep thinking in terms of, is this a way that we can find a problem that can be solved to help the learner? And if we've got some type of track of where we repeatedly see this, is it maybe the solution to change the screen size, or do we see that problem more likely in those smaller screens? And is that a potential solution?
Mm-hmm. So device, what should we have for device?
And I guess it would be just making sure that we acknowledge that the screen size has been presented X, and then we're able to see the results of that, and then use that to make changes if we need to. So,
Yep.
you know, if you get that four-headed with it, forward thinking about it, but just like it as this is what it is, and those users experience that.
There are two things. One is to identify the device, and the other is device playback screen size. I'm trying to figure out what is used to identify this information. User agent. So one way is to use the user agent string.
Mm-hmm.
It is generally a long string like this. And is generally used to identify the browser and the device and some other information that it tells. So we could either use this user agent string, or the script would need to identify the device using the string and then mention the device name. So one option is that we can change it to user agent.
Yeah, I like that.
What should we name the device playback screen size? Should it be screen size or device screen size or device playback screen size?
That's a lot of options. It's still wide open, isn't it, in terms of screen size?
Actually, if let's say we have a desktop browser and we have reduced the size of the browser, we are not using it full screen. Now the playback screen size will be part of the browser where this video can play. So the inside part of the browser that can display the video is the playback screen size. The actual device screen size can be larger than that, and in most cases the JavaScript doesn't have the information of the actual screen size. The JavaScript generally has the information of the playback screen size.
In the equipment, yeah.
So one option is that we can call it screen size. Or playback screen size.
Hey, Pankaj, I have to jump off here. I will follow up with you though and start posting those vocabulary items for you guys. For the
Okay.
video profile, I think you saw the ones I'd set up for John's actionable data book group and the across X group and so forth. So we've been trying to publish those out. I'll do the same thing with this group here and just work with you via email. And then I just posted in the chat window a response from Andrew Downs. He said, a general principle when populating properties, not just language maps, is you should be as specific as possible, but no more. So that's why they referred to that spec, is because you could get really granular and really specific, down all the way down to a dialect if you wanted to. So I think, just do EN-US. That's what that specific guidance is in the spec. The country 2-character code at a minimum, and then dash the locale. And apparently, that is supposed to be uppercase US. I did see a little bit of mention of this too in the Wikipedia. I'll put that in the chat here too, where it gives an example. If you look at the table for IETF, in that table under common schemes, and it says US English as the shortest ISO 639 code is just EN, and EN-US is a combination of that 639 code plus ISO 3166-1 country code for US. So you can get pretty in the weeds, I guess you could say. So I'll work with Andrew on making that more clear, though, with an example. I think we should put just what he says there. If you know it's English, then just use EN at a minimum. If you really don't know the language, you can just put UND, which means undetermined.
Okay. So I'll add this information as a comment on the document.
Okay.
And as we get more information, we can refine the information here.
Excellent. All right, well, I'll have to jump into another meeting, but I'll catch you guys later, and I'll sync up with you later. I'll get you offline.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Fine. So should we close this meeting now, or should we just define this last part and then?
Is that the only thing left? Let's do it.
Yeah, probably this is the only thing now. So should we call it playback screen size, or screen size is okay?
Do you think that will be like a resolution value, screen back resolution? So it'll be a.
Yeah. So maybe the value would be something like 10. Something like this.
I know I've got so many options on any different computer I'm using, and there's like 10, 12 on each of these levels, and the 1080, and then the other digits are changing. So of course, changing the width and the height, and but this is just a suggested, not the law, right? I mean, it's.
Yeah, and I am imagine it's going to be scalable because,
Right.
you know, even if your
Yeah, like I've got my big
device
screen.
was 1080,
Yeah.
you're not probably going to.
I've got a laptop. Yeah.
Yeah, so the screen size can, yeah, it can change, and when it changes, it can be sent to the LRS. So it can be width by height,
Exactly.
and if the screen size changes, as long as the video, yeah, sorry, I think,
Does that potentially cause an issue in terms of seeing a likely issue because the screen size was not even properly displayed? Not the concern. I would think that's
yeah,
kind of cuckoo.
it depends on the script and ability to get that information.
Yeah, and your player's got to be able to feed that information out to you. In some
Yeah.
ways, it could be deceptive because you know some of these with the Retina display devices, you know, real high-res phones now could show a very high resolution dimension, but the actual viewing size could be, you know, 2 inches by 1.5 inches or something. But it's good to, I think it's good to capture that if you can.
Yeah,
I need to jump off and make a call. Pankaj, one thing I pasted up above with respect to your video resolutions. I found a link. It's part of a manual for Final Cut for, you know, editing. And if people are still pumping out video with these drop frame rates, the 2994 stuff, that's got to do with broadcast in the NTSC specification, but the video displays as they're converting analog to digital and stuff like that are kind of littered with these playback rates. So if you're it's important if a thing is at 2997 to know that it's at that rate, because if somebody tries to convert it or do production on it or something like that, they need to know the exact speed so that their audio syncs are in line. Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to slowly get out of sync.
Yep.
So I would say you probably need to capture those decimals.
Okay. So I change it to decimal value. It is anyway safer to call it decimal value than integer. Okay, great. So yeah, I think we are already past the time, so maybe we'll leave the screen size for next meeting. Maybe we also need a video screen size. So I'll write it there and leave it for next meeting. And I guess we are quite close to getting this done. So thanks everyone for helping out here, and let's meet next month.
Thanks.
Very good. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.